So, the Super Mario Galaxy movie is the sequel to the Super Mario Brothers movie, and while oxygen doesn't seem to be a problem with this space-bound adventure, there is no breathing room for a movie this bloated with Nintendo stuff. Rather than further develop the characters of the previous movie, the Super Mario Galaxy movie doubles down on its referential high, just, choking the viewer with its branding. This is the inverse of a movie with Easter eggs for the fans, where those not immediately dazzled by the abundance of theatrically animated Nintendo characters must peer into the background for any semblance of a movie that's just a movie and not an advertisement. So there is a family dynamic in the sequel that just it never feels fully explored, with characters just busying themselves with action scenes that appeal more to the games than replicate any stakes to be had in the story. So there's Princess Peach, once more voiced by Anya Taylor-Joy, and she finally has the mystery of her origins revealed, but in a manner so rushed as to make room for more important scenes, like the origin of her weaponized umbrella. There's a romance between her and the plucky Mario, once again voiced by Chris Pratt. But that is teased, and just, it felt like there was potential there. But again, no time for love, because Mario has too much on his plate for a film where he has, where he still has to, work alongside his brother Luigi, once more voiced by Charlie Day, to team up with the dinosaur Yoshi, voiced by Donald Glover, a character whose personality doesn't extend beyond eating matter and pooping eggs. The whole film is like this. It has so much potential and then just squanders it. Like, I feel like I'm Kevin Garnett in Uncut Gems, where it's just like what was the point of showing me that if I can't have it? Like, why are you going to tease a romance with Peach if there's no time for that chemistry or develop it? Like, if you didn't want to do it, fine, but don't just tease it and then just let that arc just peter out. And the same thing happens with the villain in this movie. Or villains, rather. So, the villain Mario and company must defeat this time is a tired excuse for a universe-destroying threat. The returning Bowser, voiced by Jack Black, had his moments of, from the first film of being obsessed with marrying Princess Peach, going so far as to compose an obnoxious song about her. But his son, Bowser Jr., who's voiced by Benny Safdie in this film, has little in the way of personality or motivation, aiming to just conquer the galaxy with a giant gun, because that's just what bad guys do, and there's not too much more to it than that. So for a villain who possesses a magical paintbrush that can bring any illustration to life, he's really painted with broad strokes. Like, from that staging of these two villains, you would think that there'd be a little bit of a father-son dynamic where, Bowser would have to learn, what he's taught his son might not be the best, and that he might not be that good of a father, and that it feels like there's a redemption arc being set up here. And the first half of the film does seem to set that up, but any possibility of, Bowser having a character shift just peters out amid Junior's generic quest for power. I mean, it just feels like that character is like a black hole. It's just like, no, you're not going to have any development. Come on back, Dad. Let's just be, generic bad guys who, we get a big weapon and we hold the universe hostage, just typical Saturday morning cartoon villain stuff. And it's baffling that the film spends so much time on the wasted potential of a father-son dynamic, while the motherly bond, of Princess Rosalina, voiced by Brie Larson, and her cute little star babies is kind of just kicked to the galactic curb. Once again, fun stuff there that is never explored. The movie is most insulting, I think, that Mario and Luigi feel just like passengers in this story, with absolutely no development or stakes beyond saving the Mushroom Kingdom again. The crush that Mario has on Peach is a whole lot of nothing that squanders nearly every opportunity for chemistry. There's an entire montage of Mario and Luigi skimming through recognizable levels, but more for the purposes of housekeeping than saving the galaxy from the big gun or bringing some new development in with their brotherly connection. It just feels like they're going through the motions. Peach's origins are so watered down that she's literally handed a manual on her backstory, and even the crossover inclusion of Nintendo's Star Fox, voiced by Glenn Powell, has so little room for growth that he has to rattle off his entire story in a brief, stylized introduction that has nothing to, it doesn't play a role in the rest of the story or even make for fun banter. Just nothing. I mean, there's no time, no breathing room, no little moments to enjoy with the characters. All you really get are just kind of throwaway punchlines. The characters must race to the next planet, loaded with references for Nintendo fans to spot. And this rushed, underdeveloped story is especially frustrating when considering just how nice the movie looks, like with its colorful displays of outer space bathed in these blues and purples and starships of varied designs soaring, soaring across the stars. And I even kind of dug the designs of how one stop on this adventure is to a casino that has shifting gravity. I really like the layout of that setting. But after the third action scene meant to duplicate a Mario level and the fourth sequence of Mario and Luigi narrowly escaping danger as the camera swings around them, I just long for something more to care about than how many detailed environments crowded the screen. There's a scene where Mario and Luigi turn into babies, forcing Yoshi to protect the de-aged brothers from being gobbled up by dinosaurs. And this should be exciting, but I just don't care. And I don't care because I know there won't be enough time, left over to do anything more with this development other than just, referencing Yoshi's Island before moving on to the next inclusion of video game nostalgia. Even the references are exhausting in their onslaught of logos, characters, accessories, and music plucked from the games, turning the film into a version of Where's Waldo, where Waldo is cloned and in the foreground and everywhere. Like, there's no challenge to it. Like, how like films have Easter eggs that are kind of nice to find here and there for the fans? This movie is all Easter eggs. It just takes all those Nintendo Easter eggs and just shoves them down your throat to the point that you're just vomiting up pastels. And the egregious insertion of intellectual properties is agonizingly tiresome as the film progresses, even becoming very jarring. Like, there's a scene that's meant to be very sad, but it really feels tonally off when they use the sound effect of a warp pipe that just, it doesn't fit. Like, sure, it's being true to the games, but when you're trying to stress an emotional moment, not all the sound effects work that well. And I'm sure that, this must be a dream come true for lifelong Nintendo fans who only desire a deluge of their favorite console iconography just mashed on the big screen with theatrical animation. But I mean, I gotta ask, like, when is it too much? Like, there's a scene where one of the planets visited features a vast skyline of Nintendo ads with hundreds of Mario characters milling about in every shot. And there is no cleverness in these inclusions, or in there's not even charm in the use of the recognizable. There's just an emptiness to how these scenes meant to be thrilling and wondrous have a cold corporate touch to them. When everything is a cameo or a reference, none of it means anything. There's no shock, there's no surprise, there's no wonderment. Like, so what if another Nintendo character pops up? What will they add to this movie? Because based on Star Fox, it looks like nothing, aside from giving video game fans another box to check as they furiously scribble all the game connections for their wiki page or things you missed YouTube video. So yeah, the Super Mario Galaxy movie is less an exciting space adventure and more an extended Nintendo commercial with the slimmest of narratives. And just like, what a depressing feeling to know this film teases entire worlds to explore with colorful characters, and none of it feels curious, dazzling, or even fun. Like, every character has been reduced to a lifeless husk, robbed of any arc and built for little more than scenes of running, soaring, and fighting off hordes of enemies. Every joke has been forced through the 4-quadrant meat grinder to be as safe and respectable to family audiences and to Nintendo's precious identity. Every reference has been drained of any unique inclusions, served up with as much enthusiasm as a cafeteria cook just dumping a ladle full of cold sloppy joe onto your tray. And considering the colorful closing credits, the first batch of credits you have that kind of recap the story, that list the director and, the cast, they have a section for 15 people that are listed just under Nintendo team. And just seeing that in the credits just made me think, there are too many cooks in the kitchen here. With the special of the day being, oops, all Nintendo references. And just my low expectations for these movies they've shrunk further with this film. I just felt my heart make that power down sound that plays when Mario gets hit, the brr, brr, brr. I find, and I don't want to hate this film because I still find the Mario games fun, but the Mario movies are so far from that level of entertainment that they might as well be in another galaxy, with this sequel just pushing them even further into the distance. So, I wasn't that big a fan of the first Mario Brothers movie, and I'm even less of a fan with the Mario Galaxy movie, just because it never really does anything with its characters, never really pays them off, and it just kind of settles into just shoving all this Nintendo stuff at the screen without really doing anything with it. So yeah, it's a lot of the problems I had with the first Mario movie, but even more so. So yeah, I really did not like the Super Mario Galaxy movie.